Good day, everyone. I am May Falconate Orlandes. I am part of the Group 3, which was assigned to report the Renaissance or Elizabeth period literature. Before delving into our main topic, let's take a quick look back or a quick discussion about the historical context in that time. So, the first and second half of the 15th century were a turbulent age in English history because in the 15th century, the Wars of the Roses, the rivalry between two aristocratic houses of New York, which is and of the Lancaster, ended with the victory of Lancaster family when their distant cousin Henry Tudor claimed the throne. When he was crowned as the Henry VII, steering the Tudor dynasty, throughout the Tudor reign, England constantly fought with its continental neighbors. Also, the old aristocracy lost most of its wealth and power in the Wars of Roses, so Henry VII in the 16th century began gifting titles to people from the middle class, making the new aristocracy faithful to the kingdom above all else. The middle class also was growing richer and more powerful in that time. Thus, the communicators' revolution started with the printing press resulted in the fact that in 1600, nearly half of the population had some kind of minimal literacy. The spirit of the Renaissance began to show in England. Also, the rising middle class had access to the education, could read and write in their mother tongue instead of Latin, and was become aware of endless possibilities for wealth success that lay trade in the New World. In the year 1503, Henry VIII broke with Rome, so in 16th century there have been three influential historical developments. First is the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the emergence of England as a maritime power. And that's conclude the historical context of the Renaissance period. Now let's delve into our main topic, which is the Elizabethan era. The reign of Elizabeth I was also considered as a turbulent period, but she successfully coped with all of the difficulties because in her reign, England was threatened by the superpowers of the age, which is the France and Spain. Elizabeth was then excommunicated by the Pope in 1570. She was in a constant fear for her life. Nevertheless, English ships beat the Spanish Armada in 1588. Elizabeth then managed to maintain a relative peace between the Protestants and the Catholics and tried to unite her people by insisting that they are all English. This what she did worked well most of the time, and the people developed a sense of national pride. So, the English literary renaissance consists of four subjects. First is the Elizabeth Age, the Jacobean Age, the Caroline Age, and the Commonwealth period. Let's first discuss the Elizabethan Age, lasting from 1558 to 1603. Queen Elizabeth I reigned known for flourishing arts, especially drama and poetry. And then in Jacobean Age, from 1603 to 1625, King James I reigned a notable work by Shakespeare, Johnson, and Donny. And then in the Caroline Age, lasted from 1625 to 1649, King Charles I reigned characterized by metaphysical poetry and the rise of Puritari, Purita, Purita, Puritanism. And then lastly, the Commonwealth period lasted from 1648 to 1660. It is considered as a republican period after the English Civil War, marked by the rule of Oliver Cromwell and significant cultural shift happened here in this period. In the Elizabethan era, there is a great flourishing of literature, especially in the field of drama. Other major literary style was also emerged, which is the lyric poetry. Lyric poetry is a type of poetry that expresses personal emotions, feelings, and thoughts. It usually short, musical, and introspective with a focus on poems' inner world. So some of the characteristics of lyric poetry is personal and emotion, music quality, imagination and imagery, and then it is subjective. The poet's perspective and feelings are the central um, part of the poetry, of the lyric poetry. Also, in before Elizabeth reign and during her reign, medieval tradition blended with the Renaissance spirit of optimism and freedom. In Elizabeth's reign also, there's happened that Sir Thomas Yatt and Henry Howard, which is considered the Earl of Surrey, they introduced novelties into lyric poetry before Elizabeth age or prior to Elizabeth age. Now, let us discuss the sonnet. Sonnet is the most or the dominant form of poetry of the Elizabethan age. So its origin is from Italy during the 19th century, established the sonnet as one of the major poetic forms of love, poetic forms of devotion to the lady. It is also usually unattainable, consisting of 14 lines. Sonnet was brought to England in the 16th century rather, by Sir Thomas Yatt and Henry Earl of the Surrey. They adapted the form to the English language. So from Italy, Sir Thomas Yatt and Henry Earl of the Surrey brought the sonnet to England, and then they changed the language from Italian into the English language. Then during Elizabethan era, William Shakespeare, which is one of the most famous poets, emerge or exist in the time, and then his collection of sonnets is 154, which was all published on the year 1609. However, the sonnet composed by William Shakespeare, which is the 154 sonnets, wasn't there's no clear date of each poet if kano siya na compose, but the scholars knew that those poets are made by William Shakespeare throughout his career for a private readership. And that ends for my part. I'm more like about introduction naman sab. So for further discussion, we have the next reporter to discuss further what is in Elizabethan era. Thank you.